Ripon Rabbit Hole is a community-driven radio. At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests, are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Ripon Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only. Enjoy.
Good evening and welcome to Tin Hat Thursday. It is Thursday, April 16th, 2026. I am Screech and Red, and I'm coming to you live from my perch high above the western shores of Lake Michigan, where we will be screaming 360 degrees of truth. I want to thank you for joining me on Tin Hat Thursday and hope that you will join me right here on Ripon Common Sense Radio each and every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central. If you are listening on Rumble or over on YouTube, we invite you to hop on over to riponrabbithole.com and join the rest of Tin Hat Nation in the VIP Backstage Lounge. The Backstage Lounge is free and always will be. Go to riponrabbithole.com. Click on the Backstage 24/7 Lounge in the taskbar. Scroll down a bit until you see the Backstage Lounge. Click on the big red Enter Now button. Allow the permissions, put in your name, and join the fun. Just remember to keep yourself muted until the show ends. Listen to the show and then hang around for some spirited discussion with others. The Backstage Lounge is a great place to meet new friends and talk about anything that you want to. And I can speak from experience when I say that you will often find screech owls deep into the early AM hours. That is riponrabbithole.com. riponrabbithole.com. And it looks like for a while, folks, Screech will be flying solo for a little bit here tonight. I don't know if Red's going to be able to step in. I don't know if it's the bird flu or what's going on, but Red's feeling a little under the weather right now, so she may soar into the nest and join me, but we'll see. Last night when I was on, I talked about the flooding that's happening in northeast Wisconsin and the bad weather that we're seeing in southeastern Wisconsin, and really all over Wisconsin. And I had hoped to bring some live coverage from the flooding in my area and maybe talk to some people who've been impacted by all this rain we've had and the bad storms, but I just wasn't able to get out. Today we had a little family crisis that we had to handle for a good part of the day, so maybe we'll talk about this next week when I'm able to get on the ground and talk to some people. We're expecting more rain over the weekend, some more bad storms. They're forecasting tornadoes, and I think they had one down in the Milwaukee area last night. So just keep all these people impacted by these storms and the high water in your prayers as we navigate another several days of some nasty weather. So folks, you've heard me talk about this on my show. You've heard AJ talk about it on Ripon Rabbit Hole Live. We've talked an awful lot about Harry Waite and what Harry did for the people of Wisconsin and the people of this country to expose a vulnerability. And we don't have to go back and rehash the whole story because we know what happened. I've shared it with everybody. It's out there. We know that Harry exposed my vote for what they are and was able to secure ballots in other people's names. And Harry went to trial, and we know about that because I did a show on that, and AJ did a follow-up show as well. Actually had Harry on his program after the trial. During that trial, Harry was found guilty of 3 of the 4 counts that he was charged with. And a sentencing date was put in place for June 2nd. We are in the midst of a letter writing campaign, and I'll talk more about that on the break. But we really didn't know what was what the next step was. Harry indicated that there would be probably an appeal made, but we weren't sure. We've kind of been in limbo waiting to hear what the next step was. And this week we heard what that next step was on April 13th, just a few short days ago, a motion was filed uh, for Harry to receive a new trial. And I've had the opportunity to look at the motion, but I'm not well versed in the legal side of things, and I thought, what better way to understand this motion for a new trial and what it means, and than to bring in Prosey Jay Stone, the president of Hot Government, and someone who himself has gone up against the big boys, gone up against the Department of Justice, and has been successful in several of those. And Jay has filed several lawsuits and representing himself. The man is amazing. So, without further ado, I think I'm just going to bring Jay in, and we're just going to talk about this motion uh, for a new hearing and find out what that means, and hear it right from Jay. So please, without further ado, please welcome my very special guest, President of Hot Government, Prosey J. Stone.
Thank you for that introduction. Actually, it's not a motion for a new hearing. It's a motion for a new trial.
I'm sorry, yes.
So what this motion does, if it's successful, it'll vacate the conviction and there would be a new trial. And you mentioned Harry was convicted out of 3 of the 4 charges, but I think that one charge that he was found not guilty would not be part of a second trial, because you can't be tried twice. And so the jury already exonerated him on that. So he'd only be on trial for 3 charges.
Well, so that's good to know. So let's back up a little bit, Jay. Let's go back to, because I think this is really what drove this motion. Let's go back to the day, the second day of the trial, when the jury began deliberations, and they were out for what, 3 or 4 hours, somewhere in that neighborhood, and they came back with.
Well, you know, Scott, if you really want to look at this issue, you actually have to go back before the trial.
All right. Well, let's do that. Lead us through this, Jay.
Because okay, so what happened was there's a list of jury instructions for many of the charges that people can be charged with on the court's website, but there was no one charged for what Harry was doing. So they had to come up with jury instructions. So the state or the Department of Justice, Attorney General's office made recommendations, and Harry's attorney, Joe Bugney, made recommendations. And the state said, well, just leave the instructions as we came up with. And Joe Bugney said, no, as far as specific about that. And Joe relied on the list case, and that a thing of value or benefit is something that could be returned or something that has objective value. And so, and the judge ruled, he went with the state. And in my opinion, because the state said, let it sit where it's at, the judge should never have offered his interpretation of other thing or value. So I think the judge made a mistake before trial. And then, so you're right. We had the trial and the jury was deadlocked. I think that the jury got it around 5:30, and it was at least 8:30, 9 o'clock, where the jury came in, asked a question. So they call everybody back into the courtroom. They asked the question about personal satisfaction. Does it does personal satisfaction count as a other thing of value or benefit? And so the judge answered that, and the jury came back 5 minutes later with another question. And I could just see the judge was completely exhausted, as most of us were. it was 2 very long days, and he's traveling from Walworth County, and he gets there about 7:30 in the morning, and he's already had uh, he's had 2 13-hour days back to back at least, and so he came out with a definition, uh, and Joe objected, stating that that definition, he used a dictionary definition of satisfaction, and Joe objected and saying you need more than that. Uh, and let's see if I can pull it up on my uh, uh, look it up, look exactly how he defined it. He just used a dictionary. The judge used a dictionary definition of benefit, and as a result, it fit perfectly with the state's case. Now, another problem with the state's case was there was no indication that they were going to make personal satisfaction as a thing of value or benefit until closing arguments. So Harry's defense team had rested, uh, and so Harry never had a chance to defend himself, and so that's one of the issues raised in the motion for a new trial is a due process violation. The Constitution gives us a right to due process, and he'll have to give reasons, and which is good because Harry's lawyer, legal team is laying a foundation for appeal.
Sure.
So I'll turn it over to you. I see
Well,
somebody has a hand raised.
Yeah, we do have a comment or a question from Tim Ramthen, if you don't mind taking a question, Jim.
Sure.
Or
Yeah.
Jay,
Go
rather. Go ahead, Tim.
Thank you. Jay, I think it's equally important. Like, really? No, let's test it and see what happens. And he went into this thing with curiosity and interest to see if it actually would work, trying to get someone else's ballot. And he happened to pick a couple of high profile people, maybe to bring attention to the situation, the severity of the problem. And in doing so, he basically blew the whistle on unapproved application being used within our elections process, that after he took the ballot that he received to the sheriff, because the clerk wouldn't accept it, he said, nothing to see here, thank you, I'll get the ballot wherever it needs to go, and then there's nothing to be charged for. So having said that, 30,000 foot expression, why was Harry even taken to trial? Is this a Robin Voss and Corey Mason want to punish a guy, so they forced the DOJ to investigate and file charges? Or was he legitimately supposed to be charged and taken to court? Could you answer that, please?
Sure. I definitely think he was prosecuted because they wanted to make an example out of him. Remember, he did this in 2022 when there was still a lot of people saying that the election in 2020 wasn't right. And so they wanted to make an example of Harry. They definitely overcharged Harry. I will say this. I found like 6 people who were charged with ordering an absentee ballot and actually voted them, and they only received a fine between $500 and $850. So no one who's ordered an absentee ballot in another person's name has also been charged with a felony that carries a 6-year penalty. And in Harry's case, there was 2 felonies. So Harry was facing 13 years in jail compared to other people that were charged and actually voted. And Harry, admitted what he did, several hours later. And so they want to give Harry 13 years, or potentially it was 13 years versus a 500 to $840 fine.
Are these
And
elements going to be part of the new trial? Hopefully, should he get one? Are they going to
I
bring this
you know,
up?
I'm not his lawyer. You know, first of all, uh, so Harry, the first motion to dismiss Harry put in was that he was exercising his constitutional right. Like somebody could burn a flag, and we all would be upset by that. But they have a right to do that. And so the judge ruled against Harry, stating that, well, he had other means to do that. And I agree with that judge, because after Harry ordered the ballot, Harry really opened my eyes up. And as a dear friend, I filed a Wisconsin Elections Commission complaint stating that the my vote indefinitely fined applications are unlawful, and Wisconsin Elections Commission refused to hear my case, my complaint, and so I filed a circuit court lawsuit. So I won the lawsuit. Uh, the judge granted my motion for summary judgment in part, and he denied the Wisconsin Elections Commission motion for summary judgment. So I basically won, and so Harry had those options. Harry could have filed the Wisconsin Elections Commission complaint. He could have filed a lawsuit. So, uh, uh, so that whistleblower or constitutional right argument really doesn't it doesn't fly. But the arguments that I made, that uh, you got to go back in history to really understand this. So in 2012, the state of Wisconsin was sued because it took a long time for military voters and overseas voters to receive an absentee ballot application and and a ballot. And many times voters would receive the ballot after the election. So the federal government steps in and says you got to have electronic means, and those electronic means for overseas voters and military voters can be either email or a fax. And so what the Wisconsin Elections Commission did is they expanded that from overseas and military voters to regular voters, indefinitely confined voters, um, calendar year voters. Those are voters who want to vote in more than one election in a year. And so, but there was no legal authorization for that. And so recently I found, Tim, I'm sure you remember the Legislative Council. So the Legislative Council actually put out a memorandum explaining that only the elector is allowed to email the application to the clerk. And so the Legislative Council's uh, memorandum said nothing about my vote, never even acknowledged it. And by the way, this was at a time when my vote was in operation. So, in my opinion, Harry should never have been charged because the ballot Harry ordered had was null and void because there was no legal authority behind it. Did I answer your question, Tim?
I think so. What I was trying to glean for the people listening is that the driving force, in my opinion, why Harry was set to be made an example of was the tactics, the retaliatory tactics of Robin Voss and Corey Mason,
Oh,
because they wanted to deflect away from the real issue, which is there is a flaw in this process. It's an illegal tool being used in our application, and they wanted to make it all about Harry and about how he broke the law because he did election fraud, and that's I understand to make the statement, but his action was to prove that there was a flaw in the process, which was illegal and problematic for the elections process, and nobody paid any attention to that. I do know that they made a handful of changes within days after Harry revealed this problem, but nothing was done specifically to prevent access to the application. They should have locked it down with an ID and a password, and they didn't. They just put language out there that if you did try to do what Harry did, by the way, we're going to remind you which statutes you're breaking and how they're illegal, to do that up to and including felony. But they didn't stop the process from being, defrauded. So nothing was resolved. The thing is still out there. It's still broken, and like many other issues in our elections processes that have been revealed to be wrong, they haven't been resolved. And we're going into another election now this fall with the midterms, hugely problematic for not just our state but our nation when it comes to the congressional reps being on the ballot. So they keep kicking cans down the road and deflecting away and calling us names like conspiracy theorists when in fact they're the fraud deniers and they don't want to admit that it's broken and make an effort to fix it. This stuff should have been fixed years ago. So anyway, that's what I was poking at. They dumped gas on the fire to attack Harry to deflect away from the real problem, which is this application does not work right.
You're absolutely right. And actually, Tim, it was 7 changes in 8 days after Harry ordered the ballot that the Wisconsin, put it better. The Wisconsin Elections Commission made 7 changes in 8 days to make absentee ballot applications more secure.
Which should be incriminating, I think, to some degree, because they took an action based on what Harry did. Although it didn't fix the problem, they took an action, so they were acknowledging the problem, and they still didn't fix it.
You're absolutely right, and so I plan to write a petition. So the United States Constitution and our Wisconsin state constitution allow us to petition the government. And so I'm going to write a petition that the My Vote use username and ID. Now, I don't know how many of you know, but there's actually one ID, one username, one password that can be used on at least 70 different Wisconsin websites right now. It's called My Vote. It's called My Wisconsin ID, and so you get one ID, and you could use all across the state. Eventually, I've been told that they're going to have all the Wisconsin website will have the My Wisconsin ID, but so I deposed Megan Wolf, our glorious Wisconsin Elections Commissioner administrator, and during the deposition, I asked her if a username and password were ever considered by the commission, and she said yes, multiple times, but there would be 3 votes for it and 3 votes against it. So I think maybe now is the time to bring it up. And by the way, you mentioned those changes that that the Wisconsin Elections Commission did. So I gave a copy of those changes, that memorandum, to Harry's attorney, and he tried to get it into evidence, and they wouldn't allow it. It was a sidebar towards the end of the trial where the judge, the 2 assistant attorney generals, and Joe Bugney were discussing it, and they didn't allow it because they said it was after the fact. Well, if this trial hinged on personal satisfaction or intent or for the purpose is actually what the statute Harry's accused of, then it speaks to his purpose. And I think the judge should have allowed that. So I think the judge was unfair to Harry. Besides the jury instructions and the definition of benefit, I think there was other things that he did that trial. The first criminal trial I ever watched from beginning to end, and it's just how unfair our criminal justice system is. So
It truly is. So then, when the jury asked this question then about the benefits that they talked about, that was the confusion for the jury, and very abruptly, once that definition came in, like within minutes, they had come to a guilty verdict.
yeah, that's true, and that's in the motion that that the quickness in which the jury resolved the case after the definition of benefit came in. Yeah, it's in the motion, and so it's not just the fact that the judge defined benefit that way. It's the fact that he defined benefit as anything that aids or promotes well-being. It's also the fact that it was never mentioned before trial, during the trial, except for closing arguments after Harry's uh, team rested. So it was totally unfair to uh, uh, to add that in closing arguments and then add a definition that completely supported the state's theory. So I'll read you the last sentence of the motion, and I'm proud because Harry's lawyer asked me to review the brief as well as several other people, and I read the brief and I made this suggestion to him that because personal satisfaction was only entered during closing arguments and during the jury instruction, that Harry never had a chance to defend himself. So this is what Harry's attorney wrote. By introducing personal satisfaction during its closing arguments and the court's instructions right before the jury voted to convict Harry Waite, Waite was denied the chance to defend himself against the allegations of personal satisfaction. And there you have it right there. And he does talk about the due process error, and I think that's very relevant. This is from the brief. There is a reasonable likelihood that the jury applied the instructions in a way that denied denied the defendant a meaningful opportunity for consideration by the jury of his defense to the detriment of the defendant's due process rights. And so he was quoting from a case. And so what we're saying is that this pattern where the state brings in an argument in the closing, and then a jury instruction is given to support that argument, there is precedence to order a new trial. So I look forward to reading the state's opposition to Harry's motion for a new trial.
That will be interesting, and we'll pick the. I have to take a quick break, Jay, and
Sure.
then if you don't mind fielding a couple questions. Normally we don't do that on Thursday night, but you would love to. Great. So when we come back, we'll get to the hands raised, and we'll continue this conversation and find out, from Jay, what's next in this step, and hopefully what we'll see happen. With that, we're going to head to a quick break. Please hang around for the second half of the show with my very special guest, Jay Stone. Well, Red, you're sitting next to me now. I don't know if you're ready to talk or not.
A little bit, yeah.
I'm glad you're back in the perch for the time being, and I'm not sure the computer's giving me fits again, Red, as usual. We are in the midst of a letter writing campaign. We have asked people to write letters to Judge Johnson for recommendations of leniency for Harry Wade for his sentencing on June 2nd. We have received some really good ones. At the end of the show, I'm going to read one of them, folks, to you that was written by someone from in northern Wisconsin on behalf of Harry Wade. But we have several bulleted items available for you that are facts from the case that you can include in your letter. You can use any or all of those facts. We do ask for handwritten, very personal, short and to the point letters to Judge Johnson asking for leniency, and you can find those on Harry's Army on Facebook, X, Telegram, and Signal. And I got them all tonight, Red.
Yes, but on X it's Harry's Army 2026.
Right, so there you go, folks. Go to any of those platforms and you can find the bulleted items that we're talking about along with Judge Johnson's address. We want to overwhelm Judge Johnson's mailbox with personal letters from the Patriots, the We the People group,
Yeah,
and anybody else.
Not just from Wisconsin. It can be from anywhere in the United States.
Absolutely not. So if
this, in my opinion, affects the rest of the United States as well.
And if you've supported Tina Peters in her fight for freedom, now's the time to take the time to write a short letter on behalf of Harry Wade asking for leniency so that we don't have a Tina Peters 2.0 right here in Wisconsin. And this might be the most important thing you're going to do this year, in my opinion.
Right. I have to 100% agree.
So let's get our pen and paper out and do this the old-fashioned way. Folks, it's going to cost you 80 cents to send the letter off, but this is important that we stand with Harry on this one. You've stood with him this long, now going on almost 4 years since the day that Harry requested those ballots, and we've stood by his side, we've been at his hearings, and now we have to pick up the pen and do our job to help him.
And you know, there's people that never really heard about what Harry did or Harry Wade, period, until all of this happened. And I'm finding a lot of people that have not heard about it before and are learning about it now are writing those letters.
Including some of the Republican county chairs in the state, and that to me is just disgusting. So,
Yeah.
Folks, if you're listening to this, share it with everybody. Share this podcast out with people. Go back in the archives on Rip and Rabbit Hole, and you will see several episodes about Harry Wade. And share this out with people, because part of it is education too. And this letter writing campaign is huge. And folks, I've got an echo in my ear.
I know, my earpiece.
So anyway, if you have a problem finding it or you can't afford the stamp, contact me at screechowlscott@gmail.com. I'll send you the buck so that you can send it off to Harry, or I'll send you a stamp, and we're going to get this done. And we're going to hope that everything we're learning from Jay tonight is going to make that a moot point, but in the meantime, we're going to continue the letter writing campaign for Harry Wade. What else do we have, Red?
I was just reading something that a dear friend of ours sent in Messenger, and I haven't read it all yet, but I do know that she's a paralegal. So I'm not saying names or nothing like that, but I'm going to...
I hope you're not going to read that book.
No, but I think it might be relevant. Very, very relevant.
So we will look it over and we'll get it to the right people.
Correct.
If it pertains to Harry's case. So with that, we're going to return to the second half of the show. Don't forget, tomorrow night, AJ the Rip and Rabbit will, and I know he sent me a message what he was going to talk about. Red, we'll find it before the end of the show. But AJ the Rip and Rabbit tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Central Time, like all shows on ripandrabbithole.com. And with that...
Well, and we have Sunday, 10:30 in the morning, in the backstage only, 2 or more gathering.
And I think we're starting John this week.
Yes, I believe so.
All right. So with that, the music's about to come to an end. Let's jump back into the second half of the show, because we've got people that have questions and want to learn all about what's coming for Harry Waite. I'm not sure who had their hand up first. So
Scott, can I interject something? So you asked people to write letters. That was actually my idea, and I base it off of a politician that was convicted of 13 counts of RICO in Chicago. His name's Alderman Ed Burke, and he had over 200 people write letters, and the judge said he's never seen so many letters in his life. And the judge could have put him away for 75 years, but he gave him a 2-year sentence. He ended up serving 8 months.
well,
Uh,
and that's really the hope behind this letter writing campaign. And Tim Rampton actually sat down with me and spent some time with me helping develop some guidelines for.
Here's the thing: what you should include in the letter is Harry's kind, generous deeds, and if he's ever helped you in any way, or you feel he's benefiting society, the state of Wisconsin, the community, put that in the letter.
Okay, so you heard it, folks, right there from Jay, and Jay had this idea as well, and was successful in the Chicagoland area. So we'll add that to the bulleted list. Jay, thank you for that. I can tell you that we've asked people to just let us know when they've sent a letter off to the judge, and we've received several already responses of people who've submitted their letters to Judge Johnson. So his mailbox is filling as we speak. So that's our effort. We're hoping for many more than the 200 you saw in the Chicago area. But with that, we'll jump into the second half of the show. Again, I'm not sure who had their hand raised first.
Flippin' Rob and People's Governor.
All right, so I guess we'll go to Flippin' Rob first, and then Tim, you will be on deck, sir.
How's everybody doing tonight? It's kind of a two-part statement or question. I was trying to rehearse it while you guys were doing a break, but I was just getting flustered. The first part, what I still cannot fathom or understand, that if the judge was laying such criteria and ground rules before the jury was even brought in, that my vote could never be brought up, well, then the prosecution should have fallen apart, but it didn't. And then once they brought up my vote, then it kind of opened up the door. But what I find so heinous is that if Harry Waite made any monetary gain or public notoriety and benefited in any way, shape, or form, wouldn't that be at the cost and a moral detriment to my vote? That's question number one. Number two, with everything being brought up with a new filing and the fact that the jury had a question that they wanted to have a definition, and it had to be provided by the judge and the interpretation of the state, then they immediately, like I said in the show, they immediately came back shortly thereafter with a verdict. But now, let's not forget that juror that came forward and was so nice in his writing to say that he felt his hands were tied, but under the letter of the law, black and white, they had to come to this decision as a jury. That says everything right there. That jury was swayed by the fact of the black and whiteness of the law. Thank you.
Okay, so I can answer. So what the judge said, my vote wasn't on trial, but Harry could have challenged the specific statutes. And so, he could have challenged, say, Wisconsin 6.86 1AC, which says that the elector may submit an email for an application to the municipal clerk. He could have challenged that. He could have challenged 6.86 2A, which says for indefinitely confined voters, Wisconsin Elections Commission prescribe the application and instructions, and municipalities provide upon request, furnish upon request. So they could have challenged the statutes. I hope that answers your question. That you couldn't maybe mention the word my vote, but you certainly could mention the statutes, and of course you could mention the statutes related to my vote, because here he was charged with fraud under a Wisconsin Elections Commission statute that providing false information for the purpose of ordering or voting an absentee ballot under 6.85 to 6.87. So you can mention those statutes. And so they had to mention my vote in terms of, Harry filling out the online application, which there's no law for. There is law for an online application to register to vote, but there's no law to submit an online application for an absentee ballot. So, and then there was one more you had a question about. What was that last thing you wanted me to talk about, Rippin, or Rob?
The fact that the jury's hands were tied and that juror came forward after the fact and said what he said, which proved that the hands were tied under the letter of the law, black and white, that they came down with their decision immediately after the definition was given for the question that they asked.
Okay, so the jury is given instructions, and there are elements to the case, and there's actually little check boxes for each element, and so I maybe I should, if I would have thought of this, I would have actually had the jury instructions for you. But so they go through the element, did Harry Waite fill out an application, provide false information on the application? Check. Did Harry Waite? No, somebody just asked a question about jury nullification. No, you can't mention jury nullification in court. But did Harry Waite submit for the purpose of, check? Did Harry Waite order an absentee to violate a statute between 6.85 and 6.87? Check. Did Harry Waite receive something of value or benefit? Well, that's where you had. That's where the judge's definition, dictionary definition, actually, put his hand on the scale in favor. Think of the scale of justice. Everything's equal, and then the judge grabs one side of the scale and pulls it down. That's what happened here.
Interesting. Thank you for those very thorough responses to Rip and Rob. Go ahead, Tim Ramthen.
3 questions, rapid fire. Should the letter writing campaign focus on granting a new trial versus a probation, fine, no jail sentencing? This request for a new trial does change the dynamics a little bit. Would it be better to have the letters
or both?
I would say we'll know in the next. So Harry's not, the sentencing date isn't until June 2nd.
Right.
And so here, you could wait a few weeks to see what's going to happen with it. We'll know pretty much when there is a reply by the state. We'll see how strong the reply is, and then Harry's attorney will get to respond to that. The judge will probably set up oral arguments. Yeah. So it might be Harry's sentencing date may need to be postponed because the judge will have to set up a hearing date that fits with the assistant attorney general's schedule and with Harry's attorneys, and they're busy attorneys, so they could they it took months for the calendars to line up and schedule the case. I think it was in March.
Okay.
So
So
I'm
so
gonna
next question.
I'm gonna write my letter with both because I'm not taking a chance and I'm not waiting. So I'm gonna bust them on, either you embrace this new trial and you better grant it, or if you're not going to do it, then you better go light on the sentencing. Certainly doesn't require jail time, in my opinion. Second question:
Well,
what is?
can I respond to that, Tim?
Sure, yeah, please.
Yeah. So I think the judge is going to be extremely lenient to Harry. He could have had the bailiffs put the handcuffs on Harry and put him right in the jail right there. The judge, or excuse me, the attorney general, assistant attorney generals want to impose some type of sanctions on Harry while he waited sentencing. The judge said no. He doesn't have to wear a monitor. The judge said that there's no need to do a
Okay.
pre-sentencing investigation by the probation and parole department.
Well,
So in that regard, I thought the judge was extremely lenient with
okay,
Harry.
that's good. That's good to remind. The second question: what is possible if the judge denies the new motion for a trial, new trial?
Well, and then we'll go to sentencing, but and then uh, uh, Harry's attorney will put a notice of appeal, and so the the judge has the option of allowing Harry to remain out of out of prison while his appeal is pending, and I think he would go for that.
Okay, okay. So there'll be a push for additional justice if the guy, doesn't get his head out of his butt, but it sounds like he's going to be pretty lenient. Last question. The elements that you mentioned earlier, Jay, and I don't remember exactly, but something about wasn't allowed. There was the assistant district attorney group and Harry's attorney, and they were discussing about.
Oh, a sidebar. It's called a sidebar.
Yeah, yeah. During the sidebar, they were talking about allowing something in, and he said no. So my question is, will elements omitted in the first pass of this initial trial a couple weeks ago be included, like that element that they excluded, as well as calling maybe the sheriff to the stand and highlighting the my vote illegalities? Will those things be allowed in the second pass, assuming we get one? New trial?
Well, so a second pass. I mean, you're talking about a new trial.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so well, what I wanted to do before the first trial was put in a motion to dismiss. Well, none of Harry's attorneys, including his current one, were willing to do that. I think, if Harry gets a new trial, there will be motion to dismiss this time. Also, that issue has been preserved for an appeal, so we could raise that on appeal that my vote is not lawful, and that the ballots Harry ordered were the result of violations of the law by the Wisconsin Elections Commission.
So I have a question. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I just was asking if I answered your question, Tim.
Yes, you did. The fight continues beyond, regardless of whatever decision he makes. While I'm sitting here looking too, I'm seeing comments about disrespectful. I wasn't being disrespectful. I was being blunt about he's either going to make the right decision or he's going to extend this thing longer. And I think the judge has the wherewithal to understand that there's true significant depth to this case that wasn't allowed for. And if it happens to come back for a second trial, I think everything should be on the table, and it's going to really blow it up. And maybe he doesn't want to see that, so he might just not have the new trial, but go really light on the sentencing, and maybe it's over. I don't know, but that'll be Harry's call.
Well, that would be Harry's call, and knowing Harry and respecting Harry the way I do, he's going to fight to the end. And if I was Harry, I would do that too. And that's going to piss him off. It's going to piss off the Attorney General's office. but frankly, I don't give a damn. you know, I'm not a fan of Josh Cole or most of his assistant attorney generals. I probably have been up against a dozen of them. I had an assistant attorney general ask me for a favor today. Well, when I asked him for a favor 3 weeks ago, he told me to pound sand. So now I'm going to tell him to pound sand unless he gives me what I want, then I'll give him what he wants. So you just you're right, Tim. Sometimes you just have to play hardball. And I think Harry's excellent at standing up for himself.
I agree. I think everybody agrees with that one. Put 100 if you believe that Harry is ready to play hardball and is standing up to the system.
Now, I have a question about the appeal process. When we were at an event a couple weeks ago, it was actually the day before Harry's trial started. Eric Tony, Scott asked him some questions and said something about he basically ended up getting down to the appeal part. And he said that the appeals go through the AG's office. Now, my question is how does that play out when it's the AG's office doing the prosecuting?
Well, that's common. I mean, right now I've got 6 cases in the Court of Appeals, and every one of those cases, an assistant attorney general is assigned to each case. So that's just the way it is. There's actually a law that, well, it's not for criminal law, and my cases are civil cases, declaratory judgments. So there's a law that says the attorney general represents boards, commissions, agencies, etc., and also the officials of boards, agencies, commissions, etc. So
Okay.
it's just the way it's set up. But in one of my trials, Judge Schrader was really upset that a partisan office holder was representing the Wisconsin Elections Commission that was supposed to be nonpartisan. So, Jenny, so your argument was acknowledged by a judge.
So basically, I'm just worried that if that's the case, then can we expect an appeal to be denied?
Well, you'd have to have arguments. There's a process of appeal. The appellant, which would be Harry in this case, would submit a brief, and then the other side, the state, represented by the Attorney General's office, will reply, and then Harry's attorney will then respond to the reply, and then they will make a decision, probably about a year later. But Harry's case is ripe for appeal because the way the law is set now, it's in the gray area, and so when not every Court of Appeals case is published. They only publish cases that have precedential value, meaning it sets a precedent that other cases that they become the controlling authority that lower courts have to follow.
So Jay, given that you referenced the fact that the attorneys have very busy schedules, do you believe that a judge will hold off sentencing then until this is heard?
I think it's entirely possible. We don't know. We don't know what with the state, how the state is going to respond. The state will strongly object to a new trial, and then Joe will get a chance to respond to that, and then there'll be all arguments, and then The judge isn't going to make a decision at the end of oral arguments. I doubt it. The judge will need time to review the law. But the judges are extremely busy. This judge might have 50, 100 cases going on in various stages. So he has to pay attention to all his other cases as well as hearings.
Sure, and now he's going to have a lot of mail to read too.
Yeah, well, he might have a clerk read it and summarize it for him.
And
Somebody said either hearing my kitty in the background. Yeah, she wants my attention.
Very quickly, as we approach the end of our hour, Keith Kedrow did have his hand raised. So go ahead, Keith. We'll entertain one more question.
Sorry, I kind of wanted to stay on it, but so I guess considering where it's gone so far, and I'd love to see it all be over for Harry as soon as possible and as with the best outcome. But does a lesser sentence or the retrial or appeal bring more attention to the whole thing, which I think has always been very important to Harry? And sorry if I'm speaking out of place there, Harry, but his whole intention was to make sure as many people as possible are heard about this. And obviously it's worked to a degree so far, but does this easy sentence just kind of let them kind of try and let it go away?
Harry's not going to let it go away.
No,
but I do. Let me just finish. But I do believe they're trying to use that identity theft law that's in the criminal statutes that really doesn't apply to elections. What a new law that specifically for elections should be written, and or they should just stick to the existing laws that are there, and then Harry would only have been charged with a misdemeanor. So I think the state really overcharged and stretched that by charging Harry with identity theft. So instead of misappropriation of someone's identification, this is a misappropriation of the law. So Keith, did I answer your question, or you got one more? You got a follow up?
No, I mean pretty much. I just say I guess it's more to the point of how much attention Harry wanted people to know about this, and if they just do the light sentence, it's quiet, which I'd like for Harry, because then it's done.
No,
further it gets more attention.
Harry's going to appeal it.
Right, exactly.
It's not over. It's not over by a long shot. Even if Harry wasn't giving any prison time, Harry believes in what he did. I believe in Harry. I believe in his purpose, and I support Harry 110%. I've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours researching the law to try to get Harry off of the charges, and I'm firmly committed and firmly believe Harry did not violate the law, because the absentee ballot application online is unlawful.
I'm with you 100% on that. So, and thank you for all you did, and thank you, Harry, for having big hard balls.
It's supposed to be hairy balls.
Do we need to get going?
Yeah, we are up against the hour, Jay. I want to thank you for joining us and bringing some clarity to Kitty. Will tolerate it, that you can answer some additional questions. If not, we completely understand. I know you're a very busy guy, but thank you again for joining us on Tin Hat Thursday.
My pleasure. You're my people. We're Harry's people. We're all together.
We are. We absolutely are. So, folks, if I can get my computer to work. Look at that. Surprise, surprise. Well, anyway, I guess in the absence of going out music, Red, because the computer is froze up again like usual.
That doesn't surprise me.
We're gonna just go out.
We've been having issues all day with that.
Go out quietly.
All right.
And
So do we just stick here for?
yep, just hang around there for just a minute. I got to go to another page, and I'm going to have to shut everything down and shut off our stream, and then I'll give you the all clear when we're off air.
Okay.
Awesome. So, folks, don't forget, AJ the Rippin' Rabbit will be back tomorrow night with another episode of Rippin' Rabbit Hole Live. Red, what do we have coming up Sunday as I'm trying to find?
Sunday in the backstage only is 2 or more gathering, and I do believe we are starting John. We kind of talked about it afterwards. We had to pop out early, so I'm as far as I know, it's still going to be on John. And then we will be back next Wednesday with We the People Wednesday at 8 p.m. and next Thursday for Tin Hat Thursday at 8 p.m.
At 8 p.m. And again, we got big storms rolling in again tomorrow into Wisconsin. And so just hold all these people who've been impacted by this just terrible amounts of rain. The floodwaters are still rising in many areas. The Wolf River Basin is overwhelmed with water, and it's flowing downriver. And I talked to some people in Fremont today, and it's about as bad as it's been since 1922 in Fremont. And it's going to get worse over the weekend, and the computer's just not cooperating. I'm hoping I'm able to shut down the stream. So with that, we're going to go off air, Red. We're just going to say goodnight to everyone. So, Red?
We're going to stop wasting your time
because we've got a republic to save.
Yep. Sorry.
Have a good night, folks.